you to this NextGen youth panel for today. Humanity Rising has been shaped by the pandemic we're in. We have been meeting every day since Friday, the 22nd of May, in an attempt to bring people together from all over the world and a spectrum of disciplines to think through how we can transform the crisis of this pandemic into an opportunity for human renewal. Humanity Rising is powered by Ubiquity University. You can come to our website at ubiquityuniversity.org. We have a social community platform, which we call Ubiverse. So all of you who would like to participate in ongoing blogs and uploading your videos and making comments on anything that's happening in the course of world events or in the course of the daily Zoom calls that we're having, please go up on our Ubiverse. That is what we have designed it to be for. Today, I want to just take a pause and acknowledge that a number of people in the music industry have called for today to be Blackout Tuesday, and have asked that everyone who cares about the world to take a moment of silence and reflect on what's happening in the events surrounding the murder of George Floyd last week. We'll be having the moment of silence a little later in the program because the young people that are represented today are very cognizant of what's going on in the world. But I want to just frame what's happening within a larger historical context, because I think it's important to understand that what's happening is reflecting a very deep psychic polarization that takes place in the aftermath of cataclysmic events. It was Thucydides in ancient Athens 2,500 years ago when he wrote his classic work, The Peloponnesian War, that observed that after a major earthquake and plague in Athens around the middle of the 5th century, that the population divided. Some people engaged in looting and criminality. Others worked tirelessly to help those who were injured or those who were sick. And he pondered this, that in the face of a obvious emergency, he said the psychology of the human being fractures. And if you look at the history of pandemics, the history of major cataclysmic events, all the way to the present day, you see the same phenomenon. What have we been observing in the United States? The President of the United States has been divisive and has been engaging in what I would consider criminal negligence at a minimum in response to the pandemic. And one of the results of this is our death rate has soared past 100,000 and is increasing. And the entire country is caught up in recrimination and blame. And in the middle of that, an officer in Minneapolis essentially asphyxiates a Black man who's begging to be allowed to breathe. And that murder of a Black man by a white officer ignited a cycle of protest in major cities around the United States and now around the world. And I think it's important for us to just take this in and observe that we are on a Zoom call. We're all motivated for peace, human renewal. And we're part of the psychic response of humanity in reaction to this pandemic. And so as we honor Blackout Tuesday, let us contemplate deeply the complexity of the human psyche and hold that what's happening in America and in many countries around the world is a great polarization that is deep, it's destructive, and it's making it more and more challenging for people of goodwill to make the kind of difference we know is absolutely necessary if we're going to shape the world beyond the pandemic in a way that's sustainable and abundant and resilient and healthy and aligned with the natural rhythms of Mother Earth. You know, as Alfred North Whitehead said about 100 years ago, the great philosopher, reality is so complex that Christ is crucified and the fairies dance. That's the world in which we find ourselves. And that's the world, the sea of chaos, that somehow we have to bring into coherence if we are capable of the kind of depth of purpose and clarity of vision that people of goodwill since time began have demonstrated as the world inches its way toward justice. Blackout Tuesday is today, and let us honor it with our presence during this call. I would like to now turn the program over to Matt Robertson, who's a staff member of Ubiquity University, and along with Raji Jayasinghe, who will also be talking in a bit, are convening today's sessions, and we'll commence the program. Matt?
Well, thanks so much, Jim. And thanks to everyone. With so much going on in the world today, it's an honor to be here together with you all for day 2 of our NextGen Leadership Circle as part of the Humanity Rising Global Solutions Summit. My name is Matt Robertson, and it's a pleasure to open today's session with my good friend and colleague, Raji from Ubiquity University. In a moment, we will introduce today's circle on personal empowerment and leadership in times of crisis. But first, I wanted to make just a few announcements. Yesterday's session, hosted by Andrea Page from the Institute of Aliveness, was fantastic. We had a discussion on green business and really around the theme of thinking globally, but acting locally, and envisioning how we can embrace more sustainable, really lifestyles at every layer of our participation in society, whether it's from the clothes that we wear, the food that we eat, to the jobs that we have, the way that we participate in the societal discussions and protests. So that's a theme of personal empowerment that we'll continue to pick up on today. All of these sessions are recorded, and you may access or share them afterwards through the Ubiverse platform, Facebook, YouTube, or Awake TV. And we will begin with a conversation today among our panelists before moving to audience questions. So There is a Q&A function in the bottom menu of your Zoom room, same for Facebook and YouTube. And for those participating in the Zoom room, we welcome you to contribute your questions throughout the duration of the session, and we'll do our best to address them as we can. At the beginning of these sessions, we also like to say a few words of why we're featuring youth at the beginning of this summit. And so just like yesterday, we would like to read a mission statement that speaks a little bit about this. And in order to do that, I would like to introduce Raji, who will share with us the mission statement now. So thanks so much, Raji.
Thank you, Matt. And hello, everyone. It's a wonderful honor to be here with you today, wherever you are. I'm speaking to you from Sri Lanka at the moment. So hello. I will take a minute now to read our mission statement. This is something that we created internally, but we would love to have your feedback on it as well, because we'd like this to be as representative as possible. So here we go. This rising generation of decision makers and global citizens come together with the shared understanding that our world is in crisis. We are the largest and most connected generation to ever exist. And we enter these conversations fully aware that our lives and those of our children hinge on the actions we take today. We share the responsibility to identify and implement solutions. We recognize that real change starts with our daily thoughts, interactions, and choices, and that each one of us has a unique role to play in our unfolding story. Lasting and regenerative change can only manifest through our collective intelligence and radical collaboration. Collaboration that is built on a spirit of diversity, tolerance, open-heartedness, and trust. We represent current and future generations in how we live our lives today. We seek to empower each other to author the story we want to live. And we evoke creative solutions to innovate successfully for a more sustainable and resilient planetary society. So thanks everyone for your attention there. And now we move on to one of my favorite parts of the session, or the favorite part of the introduction, at least I should say. And that is our focus on art. As we were putting together this NextGen panel, Matt and I and Nora and others, we wanted to represent art in some way because we believe that art is a really important part of any movement, just as important as conversation and action. Because art inspires, it ignites passions, and it leaves a lasting impression, a legacy. So our artist for today is actually a very dear friend and colleague of mine who has inspired me to follow my own artistic path, actually. So thank you, Matt, and over to you once again.
Well, thanks so much, Raji. Yesterday, we heard from a wonderful spoken word artist named Lily Fangs. And we posted some of her work on the UBverse. So this particular art contribution was inspired from my participation in the first week of this summit. And I felt called to put some of the energy and inspiration that I was feeling emerge through these discussions into a short video. So I'll share my screen and I hope that it comes through clearly. I'll also post the link to the video afterwards, as well as I see in the comments to the mission statement as well, which does exist on a NextGen leadership forum on the UBverse. So I will share the link to that. But for now, here's a short 1-minute video inspired by the Humanity Rising Summit.
to you live from shelter in place. A watershed moment for us, the human race. The plan is 10 years to transcend fears. So now watch us rise with strength and grace. Pause. For the ones that came before, leaving wisdom of source to force. And of course, 7 generations to come, who also deserve air, earth, water, and sun. And so we rise up, yeah, us all together now, back to claim our birthright. We're birds of a feather now, weathering the weather while we all learn to take a bow. With our bodies separate, we bring our hearts together. Wow, wow. And with one deep breath, collective intelligence will arise from the depths. Welcome to the moment we finally arrive. Today we gather round and help humanity rise.
So it is my hope that we take the inspiration, the passion, the energy from creativity and use it to help us face the challenges that we encounter in today's society. So with that being said, I would like to go ahead and introduce our panel for today. We're very excited to hear from Kathryn Uhl and a number of leaders from MCW Global. Kathryn is the manager of the Synergos consulting services. She brings more than 6 years of experience in financial services, technology, and consulting. Most recently, Kathryn was a user experience researcher at Laboratoria, a social enterprise based in Lima, Peru, which teaches women from low-income areas how to be software developers. During graduate school, she consulted with the Wikimedia Foundation, Bloomberg, and IDEO on technology-focused development projects. And Kathryn is a firm believer in applying human-centered design methods and participatory approaches to tackling the most complex international development challenges. So Kathryn, it's really an honor to have you be here today and help facilitate this panel. Thank you so much, and over to you.
Thanks so much, Matt. And thank you, Jim, for the invitation. Matt, that was such a beautiful offering to start us off with. So I'm grateful to be here and to be part of this community. So we're really excited to be part of this brave space, to have some of the most important conversations of our time. I'd like to welcome everyone else into this space, to this virtual conversation as a part of the NextGen Week. As Matt mentioned, I will be your host today, and I'll be guiding us through the conversation. But before we get started, I wanted to invite you all to come into this space with an open mind and an open heart. As Jim mentioned, as a collective, we have been facing immensely painful and heartbreaking times. We're in a constant state of crisis and have experienced multiple versions of the virus plaguing our communities, from COVID-19 to inequity, racism, oppression, and violence. Each week seems more difficult than the last. So I'd like to ask us all just to take a moment of silence, to take in the grief for the lives lost and for all of our brothers and sisters across the world who are continuing to suffer. Thank you. And I feel that this conversation is incredibly timely. The world is literally on fire in front of our eyes. And as we emerge from the ashes, it will be important to take a moment to truly listen to each other, to embrace empathy, to bring in voices that are oftentimes missing from these critical conversations. Last month, we listened to our elders for their wisdom and their knowledge, then to women for their unique perspective, and now we listen to the youth, those who can help to instill hope and reimagine a better future, a future that is more regenerative, a future that is more equitable, and a future that is more peaceful. I wanted to share my sincere appreciation and gratitude for the diverse and brilliant group of global participants who are joining us today. All of these young leaders you'll hear from are a part of MCW Global's youth leadership programs. And first, before we kick off our panel, I'd like to turn it over to Khalid Elachi to share some background context on MCW Global and their Young Leaders Program. Thanks, Khalid.
Thank you so much, Kathryn, for the introduction. I'm really grateful to be able to listen to and have these important conversations using this platform. It's been amazing to listen to the conversations being had over the last few weeks, and I look forward to the many more conversations we'll be having in the coming weeks. I also wanted to acknowledge what's going on in the world, particularly in the United States as it relates to racism. It's even more important to hear from and amplify the voices of young leaders. We really believe that they're the ones who will bring positive change to the world that's much needed. My name is Khalid Elachi, and I'm the Executive Director at MCW Global. MCW Global is a nonprofit that's based in New York City with affiliate organizations in Tanzania, Rwanda, and Zambia. Our vision is for communities around the world to achieve greater levels of education, improved health, and increased economic security. We do this by empowering current leaders and future leaders. MCW has two core programs, the Africa programs, which partners with affiliate organizations in Rwanda, Zambia, and Tanzania, where we focus on vocational training, soft skills building, social programming, and oral health. Today, I'm really excited that we'll all get to hear from 6 of our alumni from the Young Leaders Program. The Young Leaders Program is an international program that brings young people from all over the world, ages 18 to 26, who are interested in making a positive change in their community. The program begins with a 10-day intensive program in the summertime with 1 year of mentorship. And the mentorship is provided by alumni from the program who've graduated. With over 1,000 alumni from all over the world, our alumni focus on various issues spanning from mental health, gender equality, LGBTQ issues, environment, and improved education. The modules we use at the program focus on 4 core programs: global citizenship, leadership development and training, self-awareness and emotional intelligence, and vision planning, which is our basic project management. As an alumni from the program back in 2003, I really believe in the work that MCW does with the Young Leaders Program. And I'm very excited that we'll all get to hear from these 6 amazing and inspirational young leaders from around the world. Thanks, Kathryn.
Thanks so much, Khalid. Really inspirational work, and excited to hear from our diverse global group of panelists. So I thought by way of introduction, we could start off by having each of you share your name, the country that you're calling in from, brief background on your work, and then maybe one customary tradition of how people greet each other in your community or in your culture. Can I ask David Sanchez to turn on your camera and to join us and to introduce yourself?
Oh, hi, Kathryn. Thank you so much. Okay, so my name is David Sanchez. I am from Colombia. Well, I'm calling from Colombia as well. Currently, we're just like in a lockdown, so we cannot move anywhere else. Well, basically, what my work is all right now is I'm working on free deforestation sites, just to help the people from the rural areas of Colombia to, like to deliver goods into the cities, because they are they are not usually paid what's right for their products. So what we're doing with our company is that we want these people particularly affected by the war that we were living in Colombia like 2-3 years ago that ended up with a peace agreement. We're looking forward for the development of these communities, and what we're doing through our company is just we want them to deliver their products to cities, and so people can get to know them and pay for what's right for their products and goods. And like a customary way to say hi in Colombia is just through kissing and hugging. We're like very touchy people, so hey you all, and I hope you have fun listening to us, and I hope I can get a lot from all of you people from your experiences. Thanks.
Thanks, David. And do you want to hand it off to another one of the youth leaders?
Yes, absolutely. I hand it off to Ifreet.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and
All
clear.
right, great. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. I'm Ifreet Taheea. I'm from Bangladesh. For those of you who do not know where the country is, it's a small South Asian country. And we take pride in having the world's longest beach and the largest mangrove forest. Currently, I am in my final year of pursuing a bachelor's degree in international business and marketing. I'll also be soon starting my internship with Unilever, which is one of the country's largest multinational companies. Now to talk a little bit about my background and why I'm here today to engage in this meaningful conversation is because from a very young age of 11, I had been involved in multiple community service activities or in the field of social work. My mother has been a huge advocate in women empowerment and children's education. And I think that her preferences really rubbed off on me. And ever since I have been involved with over 20 organizations in Bangladesh and abroad, traveling all across the world to talk about these two particular issues. In terms of working on a project, I am actually currently working on with my team to distribute relief among the COVID zones in Bangladesh, and we have managed to raise over $10,000 and managed to provide essential supplies among the underprivileged communities. So I look forward to having more conversation with all of you, and I would like to hand off to Linda to introduce herself.
Thank you so much, Ifreet, and thank you to everyone for the lovely introductions and the deep words that you shared about what we're currently facing globally and also what's going on in the United States. And we stand together through this. My name is Linda, and I'm from Nairobi, Kenya. I work with two nonprofits, actually. With the first, I work as an art educator, and I work with kids in marginalized communities and rural communities in the country, especially in the coastal region. But the capital where I'm based is more central, so we normally travel there every summer to work with the kids in art programs where they get to discover self and community building. In addition to that, I work with another nonprofit in road safety, and I assist them in creative projects as their creative methods leader. As for greetings here, as it was said, the usual shaking of hands and hugging, but since we can't do that, we can greet by saying hamjambo to a large group like this one. Thank you very much. And I'd like to hand it over to Ashraf.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad I'm here with you today. I'm Ashraf. I'm calling you from Algeria. And actually, I work with two nonprofit organizations, just like Linda. With the first called Santé Sidhoué, which is a local organization. We're trying to provide quality workshops for kids on topics such as coding, robotics, and STEM-related workshops. And with the second, which is ISEC in Algeria, we're running youth empowerment and leadership campaigns through social media. Here in our country, we greet by saying marhaba to everybody, or assalamu alaikum. And I'm really happy to be here with you once again and having this important conversation with you. I'm going to hand it off to Mila.
Thank you so much, Ashraf. And thank you, NextGen team, for the invitation to be part of today's webinar. It's really an honor to be able to talk about the personal experience and personal projects that I'm having at the moment. I have been involved in different youth activities since 2013. that's going to be almost 7 years, full 7 years now, through which time I have had a chance to work with many young people coming from both urban and rural communities here in Serbia. So yes, I come from Serbia. I'm calling you currently from Serbia. And for those who don't know, Serbia is a small country in Southern Europe. And we are one of the Balkan Peninsula countries. So to go back to what I do and how I do it and why is, I guess, the biggest part of the story. I am a youth activist myself and a youth advocate. As I said, from 2013, I've been involved in a couple of non-governmental organizations working in Serbia, but also in the whole of Europe. And my main focus is youth participation, meaning the civic active participation in different decision-making processes, in different policy-making processes. So the main aim of my youth work so far has been empowerment of young people who come from smaller urban or rural communities to acquire different soft skills, to acquire different knowledge, how to become active citizens in their own local communities, and how to transform ideas into specific actions and specific initiatives. Because if you think about it, unprecedented times require unprecedented measures, and also non-traditional challenges that we face even nowadays, but also for many decades, require non-traditional approach, which is why I am very, very, very excited to be working on a current project called the Youth Up Democracy. Youth Up, like a suit up, kind of an expression. So Youth Up Democracy is a project sponsored by the Erasmus Plus program, which is a very popular funding opportunity program here in Europe. And this project is actually gathering around 30 young people from 6 different communities in Serbia who are working towards becoming leaders in their own local communities. So what we do with them through different workshops is empowering them, as I said, to talk to their decision makers, voice their concerns, and come up with very specific plans. As for the greetings here in Serbia, we like to kiss on the cheek 3 times. But during the COVID-19 situation, that's not really advisable right now. So we just say zdravo. And that would be it for me. I would like to call Ahmad to present himself now.
Hi, everyone. A very good evening from Indonesia. It's actually 10 p.m. here right now. So as we call it, it's Selamat Malam. So really humbled to be here today, talking to all of you, with all this, diversity that we have right now. But as for myself, my name is Ahmad Rizkata Ramadan, and I'm currently, same like Ifreet, I'm an undergraduate student. Currently, in 2 weeks, I will be defending my final project. So looking forward to it. Besides that, I'm actually a part-time lecturer in my university. I mainly teach leadership as well as business practices. Apart from that, I also co-founded a non-profit organization that focuses on leveraging social media to teach Indonesian about leadership, self-awareness, and emotional intelligence, and basically just knowing yourself to become leader of the future. And the reason for that is because if you look at Indonesia, Bali, right? And all the exotic places that we have over here in the tropical island of Indonesia, right? But then if you zoom in, we're actually a very passionate citizens. We have a really close-knit community over here, diverse, but really close-knit. And we have these shared goals of actually leveraging 2045 to be our bonus demographic, because we will be having, the curve is actually will be on the top where most of the youth will be on the productive age. And so a lot of Indonesian youth right now are focusing on improving their soft skills and also leadership skills. And so I've been working with this NGO called Pemimpin Indonesia towards, realizing that. Right now we have 70,000 followers on Instagram, and we also work with 5,000 high school students across Indonesia, to giving them online trainings on leadership and as well as habit formation, because we believe that leaders are those that can replicate the impact to other people through domino effects and all that. And so very humbled to be here today talking to you all. And as for salutation here in Indonesia, greetings, we usually say hello, simply hello, and then shake hands. But for now, I think people usually love to say selamat pagi for the morning and selamat malam for the night. So yeah, nice to meet you all.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for your introductions. I'm seeing lots of comments in the chat coming through. I'm just humbled to be here with all of you and honored. Such a diverse group of panelists that we have with really impressive and inspiring experience. So I'm excited to dig into this a bit further with you all. The first place I wanted to start was thinking about how quickly the world has been changing week to week. Given this incredible velocity at which the world has been changing during the global pandemic, as youth leaders, how have you been able to adapt and pivot in order to serve your local communities? I know, speaking with you, that your own personal empowerment and personal actions, responsibility and ownership over the problems within your communities has played an important role. And so I'd be curious, Mila, if you don't mind kicking us off, because I know I had this great quote that you had said, unprecedented challenges require unprecedented solutions. I would love to hear how you pivoted in the face of COVID-19.
Yes, thank you, Kathryn. I also saw a question, one of the questions from the Q&A about the non-traditional solutions and measures and approach. As for us, here in Serbia and in Europe in general, COVID-19 has had a big influence. Some countries were hit very hard, some countries less hard, but not dismantleable. So in that sense, all the activities and the response that came from young people themselves was enormous. And here in Serbia, we have even established an online platform for the volunteers, the young people, but also the other social and age groups, to come up with ideas on how to help those most vulnerable during the pandemic, especially the elderly or the socially vulnerable groups. So this reply and the action that came from young people was really nice to see, because it lasted for several months during the emergency situation that we have had here in the country. And another, let's say, problem that arose from the pandemic was that a lot of youth activities have been stopped. They have been canceled or postponed because of the pandemic, and a lot of things could not have happened. However, young people, as tech savvy as they are, came up with innovative, this is what I meant by non-traditional and unprecedented, with an innovative solutions, using different digital tools, using different digital appliances that they could use in sticking together and standing up for the most vulnerable ones. So even in my organization, what we have organized a couple of webinars, just talking with people, with young people, with other peers. It was peer-to-peer communication, and it was also peer-to-peer help, sort of, so that they could help each other, but also come up with different innovative ideas on how to help the others. So even though our project might have been postponed because of the pandemic, it didn't mean that we stopped with the activities. It just meant that our focus kind of shifted a little bit towards the necessary challenges that have hit us. So I would say that the young people's response was the most important aspect of tackling the not only current situation with the pandemic, but will be also the most important aspect in tackling the aftermath of the pandemic, because the consequences will be definitely there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mila, for those insights. I'd love to, Linda, as you've been working with your nonprofits on the ground. I would love to hear how you've had to kind of pivot, adapt to the circumstances and the personal actions that you've taken.
Thank you so much, Kathryn. Just as Mila mentioned, there are a lot of changes that have taken place as soon as the pandemic hit. The cases are still on the rise here in Kenya, and we don't really know when that shift is going to change. So we're doing our best to try and adapt with how much things are changing, and a lot of initiatives and projects that were in the pipeline were paused as a result. So we had to shift focus, and instead of being able to gather as we normally did face to face and being able to conduct our programs, we now channeled our efforts more into equipping those that can be able to deliver the program. Because in the case of the children that we serve, they're in communities where they do not have internet access. They don't even have electricity. So it's hard to reach them since we can't leave the city due to a lockdown. So what we've chosen to do is to equip those that are within the vicinity, whether that's through online platforms. How can we be able to train them so that they can go out and train others? That's with regards to the art program. As for road safety, I've been working a lot with the Global Alliance of Road Safety NGOs and trying to map out creative ways that people can be involved in capacity building, in advocacy, in training, using online platforms, such as visualization activities where people can be able to draw the kind of environments that they're currently living in as a result of the pandemic, how the environments were before the pandemic, and what they see it being after the pandemic, and understanding what their fears are, the safety issues that they're facing, and how those can be addressed. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
That's wonderful. Thanks so much, Linda. And I think we've all seen how the role of digital has played a role in terms of either marginalized people that don't have access to internet, or it can be an enabler and allow people to leapfrog some of the barriers that they would typically have to face. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I'd love to hear next from David. Do you want to share with us how you've been able to pivot within the context in Colombia?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Kathryn. Well, here in Colombia, as I said before, we've been in one of the longest lockdowns around the world. We've been in the lockdown from March 18, and it's going all the way through July the 1st. So what we've been doing in order to help our providers, especially in the countryside of Colombia, is that we are working through online platforms. And through working through online platforms, we are also letting people know where those products come from and see if they are willing to help them by buying them. So for example, here's this platform that we're using currently in the city of Bogota. It's called Despensa, and it's helping people from the countryside to get their products from the villages around Cundinamarca and from other places as the Eje Cafetero and Tolima, which is like 300 kilometers away from the capital of Colombia, to get their products in the city. How are we doing this? Through online platforms, by telling them how the production is done, by teaching also people in the countryside on food security, on food safety, because it's also important that they learn on how to cook their own products, because if they don't know how to cook, then how are they going to feed their children, how they're going to feed the people around them? So what we're promoting mostly is that people on the countryside are helping on their own towns and villages, helping each other, are learning how to cook. So we're doing these webinar sessions with all the chefs and stuff all during the weeks, and we've been getting their products up shipped down to Bogota. But it's also a very big concern that there's also food going to waste. So what we're just doing is we created this platform, which is Colombia Helps, which aims to help all those people to unite, and all the restaurants in the city of Bogota and the city of Medellin also to help each other to buy those produce and avoid them going to waste. Because as you know, Colombia's geography is a little bit complicated. So to get their products out from a place to another may take up to 8 hours, up to a day. So it's also very important for us to teach them on how to get a food safety around in their communities and how to feed each other. So that's what we're doing, mainly in those spaces. And also, besides working with the people on the countryside, affected directly by the conflict, by the armed conflict that we had in the country, we're also letting them, like teaching them some like gender activities, because as this pandemic started, we started noticing one thing, and it was a bit more concerning than just food safety, and it was also on the violence, because like most of those people, they have never had the opportunity to learn about gender, about how we should act in front of like the world, and how the world's developing. So what we're doing is just like teaching them on webinars on how to cook, how to use their products, and also on gender activities, which we also find very important. And that's how we've been adapting through online platforms. They have been very, very helpful for us to deliver our knowledge, and for them to deliver their knowledge to us as well.
Thanks so much, David, for sharing. And one of the themes that I think is interesting that's coming up is how to shift empowerment over to communities, because as you had mentioned, some of the knowledge sharing, teaching people how to cook, capacity building, and as well as resource mobilization is a key way to really build off of the assets that live in the communities, and to help to empower communities. So that's wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing, David.
Thanks, Kathryn.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to ask Ifreet if you wouldn't mind also telling us a bit about, in the context of Bangladesh, how you've been adapting and pivoting.
So to begin with, the lockdown had started in the later part of March, and it has actually been lifted in restricted amounts since the 31st of June. However, if many of you might have heard of The Guardian, right, the news portal, and a recent news article especially highlights about how social distancing is impossible in Bangladesh. And that is because we are the world's most densely populated country, and the size of our country is the size of Iowa. And it's just a state, but that's our entire country. So for millions of people to live here, and for so many of them living below the poverty line, it was really difficult for me and my team to take any initiative without assuring that we can take care of the social distancing aspect, and we can distribute all the essentials that we want to amidst the rural areas, or amidst the underprivileged areas carefully. So the name of the initiative that our team took is Dhaka COVID-19 Crisis Relief. And we started about 2 months ago. And we have, what we have done is we started, just 7 of us, we started together through online on Facebook, and we started raising funds to help the COVID affected communities. So as I mentioned before, a huge part of our population, they live below the poverty line. So they ran out of jobs. Most of them were day laborers, and they had no source of income. So what we wanted to do is, as a privileged part of the community, is to gather those funds and then distribute among the communities in the most effective way by creating a supply package that would last them for 2 weeks. So these supplies included not only food items such as rice, potatoes, salt, oil, but also some hygienic products when possible, such as hand wash or sanitizer. So then the question came that how do you maintain social distancing, right? We are distributing supplies in such areas where people are going to fight to get your supply, to get to that one last bag, that one hope that they have of sustaining for 2 more weeks with their family. We actually had no certain plans in place because we did not know how much impact it would make, how many people we would be able to reach out. But upon going to one slum, we saw that the kids there, they themselves created social distancing circles. And that is when we realized that, it's not always the educated people that have the most brilliant ideas to make sure that there are, ways to solve issues. we learned from them, and we made sure that when we do our distribution runs from there on, that we are ensuring social distancing steps. For example, all of the distribution, they were supplied personally by our team. So we made sure we were wearing the mask. We made sure we had our gloves and all the sanitizing options in our hand. And then what we did is we sat in our car and actually handed them out one by one, because we did not want to drag so much of attention in one place that thousands of people would gather and have to fight over a bag of essentials. Alhamdulillah, we managed to gather $10,000 that we had never imagined. So a lot of people, a lot of youth, they ask me that, so for girls especially, we are not really allowed to go out, let alone in COVID situation, right? So how can a girl or a boy, a youth, play a big role in the community by sitting in their house, in the four walls? So I would suggest all of you to take advantage of the power of social media, because the initiative that we had managed to take was through Facebook. We did fundraising through Facebook and even collected some funds to mobile banking options. And we had managed to reach over 1,700 families. So that's about like 9,000 people. So of course, we did not manage to touch upon such a huge number of population, but we do know that the money that was given to us, entrusted with us by the donors, were going to the proper hands. So it's a lot about learning and adapting. It's I know you asked me personally that what I did, but I think that even a lot of ideas, they even come from the underprivileged communities, even from the uneducated. So you always have something to learn from one another. And through a lot of seminars, meetings such as this, I have managed to learn a lot about others' initiatives that they're taking in a crisis like this, and then trying to implement in my own life or in the initiatives that I'm carrying out. So that's about it. Thank you.
Wonderful. And I think what I love so much about that, Ifreet, is what you said, that a lot of these solutions actually live in communities that are most affected, that are most marginalized. And a lot of times I think our role as activists or as social change agents is to listen to those communities. The solutions that come from those communities can oftentimes be the most impactful. So I think just listening with empathy, listening with an open heart, and learning and being willing to change and to adapt when things aren't exactly as we think they to be. So thank you for sharing that. I love that lesson learned. Ahmad, I would love to call on you to share a bit about your pivots and adaptations.
Sure, yeah. I think that one of the areas that almost all NGOs in the world, I think, have to adapt with the situation now is that we want to be the light, right? We want to be the light that shines on the darkness, but at the same time, we don't really want to be a candle, right? Because then candles, they shine on the darkness, but they also burn on themselves. So really the question was, how do you make a sprint, solutions that might be good for now, but then on the long term you might lose control over it, or it might not be be as impactful as it is now. Change that into something that is more like a marathon, right? And so what we did first was before COVID, Pemimpin Indonesia, we really focuses on creating a hub. So we actually invested on buying some houses in the Jakarta area, because we wanted to create a community that would bring that domino effect. So we actually partners with educational institution, we have partners in the education NGOs, and we also partners with high schools and all that. But I think that one thing that we've been trying to do and learn from this situation is that, well, our hub didn't work now, obviously, because we cannot go anywhere. But at the same time, I think we realized that this social media platform is actually a really big platform. And what we've been trying to do now is actually scale up the quality of content that we have, and also trying to utilize the community that we have. And so I think since February, we actually bought 5 Zoom premium accounts, and we disseminate that to our large part of the community. Actually, our WhatsApp group now have around 90 NGOs that are within on consortium. And so what we see now, almost every day, we see 1 to 2 sessions on each Zoom accounts, 5 days a week. And so, I think that speaks to the fact that learning doesn't stop with, COVID, and it's been great to see people's spirit to learn has actually been, higher than ever, actually, because people now have access to internet better, and they actually have, more control over their time, so they can manage to get to more classes. And not only leadership, we now have classes in project management. We also have classes in, life skills and even language projects. And so that's one of the things that we were able to do during this COVID pandemic. And the other thing that we were trying to do is, because we have communities that are in the educational and educational institution, we wanted to see whether or not we can collaborate with all of this educational institution, especially universities, to actually create some practical solutions to the pandemic. And I think last month we were able to ramp up productions for homemade respiratory tools. And so right now, I think we are supplying to around 3 or 5 hospitals in around the Jakarta area, around the capital area. And so we not only collaborate with them, but we also help them find the fundraising to ramp up the production. We actually raised around, I think, $3 million US through donations from philanthropists and organizations and corporations and all that. And also, I think a big part of this pandemic really for us has been to actually realizing our potential, because we didn't know that we could really do all of these things without the pandemic. I mean, the pandemic itself is very unfortunate, but I think that our mindset going in was to always improve and grow our community, and we've been humbled that more and more people are actually engaged with the community that we are making right now.
Thanks so much, Ahmad. And I love the quote, "Learning doesn't stop with COVID." I think all of your stories and examples really show that COVID has created an opportunity really to be more creative in the solutions that we come up with. Sometimes constraints and barriers force us to think about problems more creatively. And I love hearing, Ahmad, about the funding that you were able to raise to scale some of these really promising programs. So this is excellent. Thanks so much for sharing. And last but certainly not least, Ashraf, I'd love to hear about the work that you're doing as well, and how you've needed to pivot and to adapt to the circumstances.
Yeah. So this COVID period was very unusual, and nobody was waiting for it, actually. It just happened like this. And since we're mentioning adapting, there's this beautiful quote that I'm working by these days. The pessimist complains about the wind, the optimist expects it to change, and the leader adjusts the sails. So we were thinking about how we can contribute to youth and to leadership during this time of crisis. And we came up with a campaign called Leadership is Also About, which we ran on our social media over all our entities, 126 entities over the world. And we focused on 3 things. The first one was about giving advice, safety advice, because we noticed a lot of people weren't informed, and we tried to do some awareness. The second thing was about how we are adapting as an organization. And the third thing was focusing kind of the bright side of this crisis. So we started by highlighting some of the opportunities we have. For example, we are very lucky to live in an era where online and networks are very developed. So basically we can communicate through from long distances through free tools. We also highlighted the fact that we have a lot of time because usually in our normal routine we'll be commuting and going places and somehow wasting time, but now we have all the time we need. So it was a good opportunity to learn new skills, get some knowledge, and use that time actually to grow and come out stronger out of this crisis. So basically that's what we did with the Youth Empowerment and Leadership campaign. As for STEM education, at first it was very hard because actually for STEM education, for example, robotics, you need some hardware. But again, we tried to adapt and we came up with a solution, which is a software which is 3D, where you can manipulate hardware just if you had it. But it's completely software and it's free to download, and a lot of people adopted it.
Thanks so much for sharing, Ashraf.
You're welcome.
And I think one of the things that I'm hearing across all of our panelists is oftentimes this started off with sort of small personal actions and responsibility that you each have taken on yourselves. But as Ahmad said, there's sort of a domino effect as you're able to bring others along in the community. So if there are other young leaders listening in today, I want to see if any of you have advice of how do you start with making these large scale transformations that can sometimes feel too big to tackle by yourself? What are some small actions that youth can take today to become activists and to make a more just and equitable world? Would love to hear from any of you that have thoughts on that.
Well, since we have, again, we're very lucky. We have a lot of tools in which we can drive change simply from our rooms. We have social media, we have in the internet, we can create videos just by our phones. So I guess the solution is lying right now in your pocket, and it's right there already.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing, Ashraf.
Welcome.
And I see a few comments in the chat about every little piece adding up to a larger, more transformational systemic change. I see, Linda, you've turned on your camera. You want to add to that?
Yes, I just wanted to add, yeah, if that's okay. I'd say that once you feel that drive within yourself to take action on an issue that really strikes you deep. For example, like myself, I really have a deep passion for road safety, and I have since I was a teenager. And it's around the time that I reached my early 20s, when I was still in campus, that I decided I needed to take some form of action to address the problem. And at the time, I wasn't clear on what exactly I should do. But the first step that I decided to take was to reach out to a local NGO that was carrying out work that I was interested in and wanted to participate in. And thankfully, they were very receptive. That was Pamoja Road Safety Initiative that I still work with to this day. And they took me under their wing and trained me. And I learned so much from them about road safety and about the effects that it has, the ripple effects in health, in the environment when it comes to pollution, the effect that it has on economies, GDPs, and the fact that it affects more low and middle income countries than it does developed ones. However, it's still a universal problem. If 1.35 million people are dying each year on roads and 20 to 50 million are left with permanent injuries, it's a problem that we seriously need to address. So for the young people out there that feel that calling to take action, start with what it is that you're passionate about and go after that and use your strengths because you have them. I'm an illustrator by training, but then I make sure to tap myself into road safety, into community service. And I believe that plenty of young people out there can be able to do the same with the strengths that they have.
I love that, playing into the strengths, the assets that you have, and then also thinking about what is your passion? What is sort of that thing that makes you get out of bed and brings you to life each day? I love that. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to share advice or thoughts on how young leaders can start today? I see lots of raised hands. David, I'll start with you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think just as Linda said, it all starts with passion. Like when you have the passion to help others, or I mean, it's not even the passion to help others, but the passion to help yourself and help other people in the process, because I believe it's always a give and take thing. So basically, it all starts with your passion that you gotta find out what you're good at. And as you know that, and as you realize what your strengths are, you gotta surround yourself with people that has the same motivation that you have. because I believe it's not only a work that you do for your one person and only, but it's a thing that you team up to do. So if you're not with people that have the same passion that you have, if you're not surrounded with people or an organization that helps you to clear your mind, clear your ideas, then it's definitely going to be a lot harder to create a change, or especially what you want to do. So for example, basically what I learned when I had the chance to participate at MCW was that we can work locally through a global organization. And so I found out that the issues that we had in our community in Colombia were also the same issues that they have in Bangladesh, or that they have in Pakistan, or that they have anywhere else, that there were just a different approach. So surrounding yourself with people that motivates you, it's also very important, and I think is the key to create a change. So I like to thank all the people here, because definitely your stories are so inspiring, and having the chance to be here with you guys will also inspire me to help create a more change in my community and get better ideas. So yeah, that's basically, you guys are inspirational.
Thanks, David. I love that. And I like the idea that change starts with yourself, that we kind of have to do that introspective work and think about what we need to change in ourselves, and then the communities that surround us, and our partners and our colleagues that surround us. One of the philosophies that I've loved of MCW Global is local change through global exchange. So the ability to act on real local challenges, but to be inspired through this global community. Mila, I saw you raised your hand. Did you want to jump into and give some advice?
If I could be very brief.
Absolutely.
I fully agree with what has been said before, and I cannot stress enough how important it is to go outside, as someone also in the chat said, but also stay informed. Check your facts and read a lot, and be part of communities such as this one, such as the MCW as well, and try to exchange with your peers and with other young activists and young leaders about their experiences, and share your stories, because storytelling is another very useful technique in mobilizing your own community. As David said, the change starts within us. Well, the mobilizing starts with storytelling, I would say, because once people maintain to and manage to actually identify with what you're saying and with what your story and your background is, they will be able to understand deeper what the challenge that you're tackling is, and they'll be able to join you in your efforts to handle the challenge that you're handling. So stay informed and be part of greater communities of young leaders and your peers.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing, Mila. And that actually feeds very nicely into the next question I had, which is around the role of mentorship. I know mentorship is a big feature of the MCW Global programs. I'd be curious how the role of mentorship has played in your own leadership journeys. And as you see yourselves growing into mentors, what does that actually look like, and what does that mean to you?
Can I comment? Yeah, I think with all of the works that I at least try to do, and also I'm also still in university, right? So I think that a lot of the works that I do actually, get to my juniors and everyone at my campus. And so what I've been discovering is that now that I have this platform that have some kind of power, is that they try to my juniors and everyone that knows me, they started to to look for advice, right? And it's not that I personally, I think that I'm not very capable of giving advice, because I think that me and my team are still learners at heart. But at the same time, I think that as activists, or so you say that we have this responsibility to actually just pass on the batons, and paving the way for others to actually replicate our works, right? And so I think that when it comes to mentorship, I really emphasizes on helping them to start, right? Because I think that starting up an initiative is the hardest part of the journey. A lot of I see in a lot of my friends actually started something and then just quit middle way because they don't know how to, let's say, scale up, or they don't know how to find fundings and everything. And I think that one of the most rewarding experience I have in these last years is actually to connect these people with, you know, the connections that I have built over the years. And, you know, really, if you started to become mentors and, you know, people look for advice to you, I think the most rewarding experience is, you know, just to see them thrive, you know, like just to see more and more initiative blossoms into something that is beautiful. And yeah, I think it's the balance of, you know, actually telling them to do stuff, but also coaching, right? Because mentoring, we tell people how to do it, we tell our experience, but then sometimes we also have to push them. Sometimes we also have to ask them, right? Because sometimes growth also happens when we ask the right questions. And so I think it's a balance between, you know, just telling them and also letting them explore and kind of just looking on the sideways, really.
Thank you, Ahmad. And I love that idea of sometimes a mentor doesn't need to have all the answers, but can ask the right questions. So I think that's really wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to yeah, Ifreet.
Hi. Why I really wanted to answer this question is because I have actually been involved with MCW since 2016, and I entered as a mentee at the age of 16, and then later came back to the program as a mentor for 2 consecutive years. So I think I have some perspective to give in the view of how it helped me get the mentorship program as a mentee, and then be able to give back to the later mentees that came into the program. So as a mentee, when I came back in 2016, I think my case would be really exceptional because I was already active in the field of social service and community service from a very young age, right? But why the mentorship concept really struck me and really helped me out is because in countries, especially like South Asian countries, we are not really used to the concept of mentorship itself. We are used to hearing decisions that's being made by the parents for us, or by the elders, or by the teachers, or by the leaders. They just feel that they have the power, the authority to push their decision onto the leaders, onto their citizens, or to the next generation. But when I came to the MCW program, I was introduced the concept of mentorship, and I realized that there is actually 2 ways in which the mentorship could really be productive. So one is to be able to develop a personal mentorship, and the other is to get a professional mentorship. So it really depends upon how your mentees work, or how the person you're trying to help out work. Maybe a lot of people, they will benefit a lot more by getting friendly advices, friendly suggestions, rather than very professional, hey, you need to get this done within this deadline. And the approach does not really work. It's not a same size fit all situation. So I was lucky that when I came in, being the bubbly girl I am, being the outspoken girl I am, I was paired up with a mentee who picked upon that, a mentor who picked upon that, and realized that the friendly personal building approach would really help get the best out of me. And it did. I was able to create an organization that works with multiple underprivileged families, and we provide sexual trainings, and we provide women leadership seminars and whatnot. And then I came back as a mentor. So now I got these 2 wonderful mentees from India and Zimbabwe. I realized that one of them had that professional touch that they needed. They were more composed than I was at my age. They knew what they wanted. They were a law student, like she was a law student, and she was just so empowering. Like I was in awe. Before I could play my role as a mentor, I was in awe of the things that she was doing. But that's when I realized that I need to learn more. So I tapped into my resources of the mentors that I have had ever since MCW happened to me, that how can I now create a professional approach of mentorship and then get the best out of this particular mentee. And I realized that there are actually a lot of outlines that's actually available even on the internet, and that you can really, really, really look into those resources. I think we're really lucky that we live in a digital age where resources are so available. Maybe back in those times when our parents or our leaders who thought that, forcing us to believe in the decision, they didn't have access to those resources, but we do. And it's our responsibility to utilize those resources that's available and make sure that the next generation, they don't feel like that the decisions or the acts that were taken were pushed for them to do it. So when I think it was really rewarding experience when I came back as a mentor. We were provided a mentor training by MCW, which really helped a lot of the other mentors. So talk to your peers, it's always talking really helps, and listening really helps. So it's always a two-way situation. As previously mentioned, that you really need to understand that when you're providing mentorship, you do not want to keep them in an uncomfortable situation that they feel like you are the teacher and they have to study and implement that in their project. It's a two-way route. Thank you.
I love that, this sort of two-way dynamic. And I feel like as mentors too, there's opportunities to learn a lot about ourselves. So I think that's great. And it was really interesting to hear you talk about there's no one size fits all. You kind of need to feel out what that mentorship relationship looks like with anyone that you interact with. And so a style that works with one person in terms of communication might not work with another. And so having those honest conversations from the beginning is super helpful. Wonderful.
Definitely.
And Ashraf, I saw you come off mute. Did you want to add something else?
Yes, actually, I think one of the best aspects of MCW's Young Leaders Access Program is the mentorship part. I think it's a knowledge and an experience transmission mechanism. You can learn a lot from your mentor, from their mistakes, and it's also very humbling to have someone who is always there to support you and motivate you, and who is a source of inspiration. By the way, shout out to my mentor Lourdes if she's watching. And also, I'm really happy that I have been selected as a mentor with MCW, and I can't wait to give the same amount of support and motivation to my future mentees. And I'm really happy that I was introduced to this mentorship concept, because actually you can learn and teach a lot with this mechanism.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing. I've been tracking the questions that we're getting here, and we can turn over to some Q&A from the audience soon, but I had just one last question that I wanted to ask you all. So as we kind of move and we look towards the future and reimagine what it could look like to be a bit more just and equitable, what are some things that are giving you hope, or what brings you hope in the world as we continue to think about ways to build back better, to address these systems of oppression, racism, inequality that exist today? What gives you hope?
Can I start?
Yes, please.
Okay, so out of all the bad things going on around nowadays, which are a lot, I think there's also hope. And I like to see things from a positive perspective most of the times, because that's what keeps me, or keeps my heart warm. Keeps me from stopping to do what I love doing. So basically, to see all the generosity, to see all the people, for example, in my country, that's uniting to provide food to other people that doesn't have any. I think it's so inspiring. And also the fact that we are, just like going to our windows, clapping to our medical, to our doctors and to the people at the sanitary every night, just knowing that some people is hoping that everything gets better somehow. it actually gives me hope, and it gives me hope to know that we are all in this together. And as far as we're not in the same position, I think we can all make it, and we can all make it with the resources that we have and by helping others with what we know how to do. And I am pretty sure that as there's 6 of us here that are doing some things that are helping others, I'm pretty sure that there are 100 folks out there in my city doing the same thing or even better, and that they are not being recognized in this platform as I am right now. But I know they're doing also an amazing job, and I'm pretty sure that there are more good people than there is bad people in the world. So that's what keeps me positive and what keeps me inspired. And it's actually really awesome to know that in every corner of the world, there's people doing great things.
Wonderful. Thanks, David. And I think sort of communities like this too, where we get the opportunity to hear from leaders across the world, brings us inspiration, brings us hope. When you hear about the amazing work that you all are doing, that's what gives me hope, is to hear from all of you. So this has been wonderful. Are there others that want to speak to what's bringing you hope? And I see another question around either hope or inspires you in your work. Mila, I saw you raised your hand.
Yes, thank you. From my own perspective and my previous experience, actually, what I would say that kind of drives me and keeps me in this youth work field is definitely the power and the motivation of the young people I work with, and that I have a chance of talking with. Like David mentioned, like the 6 of us right here, right now, is also a handful of inspiration and motivation. And this ability of young people to quickly respond to different challenges is amazing, because it gives you this drive to change things and to tackle the challenges from various perspectives. And nowadays we're witnessing that there are more and more opportunities to be involved in, which young people are wholeheartedly embracing, which is another, let's say, inspirational thing. And last but not the least, what I would say is that the young leaders of today and the young leaders of tomorrow are definitely a generation of equity and mutual respect, which I believe we deeply need right now.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that also is just brings me a lot of inspiration to hear from younger generations that have these views towards equality that I think each generation builds on the last, and it just makes me optimistic for the future. Wonderful. Did anyone else want to comment on the idea of hope or inspiration that drives you?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, what motivates me and what gives me hope is that I'm deep down, I'm pretty sure that we as humanity, we always come through. It's just a time of crisis, and we have learned our lessons. We now know what to do and which mistakes to correct. We now know that SDG 3, good health and well-being, is very important. And also that we are not separate islands in this planet. We are one humanity and on one planet, and that we should collaborate together and work together to keep going and keep growing. So basically this is what gives me hope.
Wonderful. I love the sense of unity across the different geographies, across the silos that sometimes polarize and divide us. If we can come together as a collective, the options and the possibilities are limitless. So thank you, Ashraf. I love that. Wonderful. I did see a few questions from the audience come through earlier that I just wanted to touch on. So we've talked a lot about healing communities, the communities that we live in, the communities that are most marginalized. There is also a question around how to heal Mother Earth, the earth that has birthed us all. And so I was curious if any of you have started to think about or have ideas around how to heal the earth as we think about rebuilding a more just and regenerative future.
Could I answer that?
Yes, please.
Okay. And before I do, if you just allow me to say something quick on the last question that you asked. I really love what David shared, that he believes that there are more good people in the world than there are bad. Because every day when we switch on the news or when we hear the general discussion, it can be very discouraging for a lot of people. It can be difficult to even imagine that the world is somewhere that you can be able to thrive and succeed in and be able to empower others to do the same. But with that kind of mindset, it's uplifting to any person. So thank you for sharing that, David. And personally, I'd say the number one source of inspiration that I get is from the children that I interact with through my projects, because these are kids that you find are neglected. They're neglected by government, they're neglected by those that are supposed to provide them their rights, their right to education, their right to a proper home, a right to being connected to the rest of us. But despite the circumstances, they remain motivated and they continue to dream and they continue to aspire and work towards their goals, no matter how remote their location is and no matter how hard their circumstances may be. And they even that hope trickles down to us who are there to serve them, but they end up inspiring us through that process as well. So children, youth from difficult backgrounds as well carry a lot of wise words and inspiration with them. Yeah, so I just wanted to share that really quick. And about healing Mother Earth, there are a lot of lessons I've learned from the communities that I've worked with, a lot of alternative methods that they've been able to find to do certain tasks without leaving a dent in the environment or damaging the environment in the process. So being exposed to communities beyond the cities, because within the big cities, you find there's a lot of pollution, there's a lot of wastage as well. So working our way out and learning from those outside the cities, there are a lot of lessons we can learn moving forward, I feel.
Thank you so much, Linda. And I love, again, sort of this theme that's echoed through and been woven throughout the discussion around the inspiration that lives in communities that are closest to the problems that we're looking to solve. Yeah, I carry that close to my heart, and I've loved how that showed up throughout the conversation. Did others have any last words around healing Mother Earth that they wanted to leave our audience with?
Yes, actually, one of the bright sides of this time of crisis is that air pollution drastically decreased, and we saw some improvements in air quality over some of the industrial cities. And I think we should learn that our economy is fragile. Our whole system is fragile if we don't preserve our health and our earth. We should realize by now that we cannot eat money, and that what we stand for is what we stand on, and that we should beautifully preserve and take care of Mother Earth.
I love that. What we stand for is what we stand on, and the interconnectedness of all the different pieces, the living organisms and Mother Earth. Wonderful. Thank you, Ashraf.
Welcome.
David, I saw you raised your hand. Was there something you wanted to add?
Yes, definitely. Like during the job, I pursue what I've learned through the things that we've done is that people actually is willing to take action on how to preserve the earth. They just don't know how. So, for example, what we've been working on with the people on the countryside, they used to have these different methods of production that were affecting their communities around. And so what we're doing and what they did, because this is not just me, I mean, this is a big platform that's working in Colombia right now towards sustainability and towards action against deforestation. We've teach them how to get a clean production how to take care of their communities around. So it is also important that our governments, our private sector, our public sector commits on consuming those products that have been harvested with clean production. And our government takes care of it as well, because it is, for example, last year we signed this agreement of free deforestation. And so a big platform of restaurants and chains in Bogota, Colombia, which is the capital of the country, agreed to buy only the products from farms and from places that hadn't been deforested in 10 years. And I think this is a big step, because, you know, we tell the people that produce that they cannot deforestate and that they have to get a cleaner production. It definitely is going to make a chance. And, you know, the results have been awesome during this past 6 months. We've seen that the carbon footprint has lowered down, that we are walking towards a world that it's more aware of what's consuming. And I think that's also important, because to learn that we also have the tools as consumers, that when we go to our local markets, we can either choose to consume from a local producer that has a clean way to producing, or we can choose to buy from the big chain that we don't know where the product comes from. So I think it's also some tools that we have available. Also, when there's these platforms with the government, that we have a voice there, that we can also work towards that. I think it's also important. So sustainability is a key for the development of the world. And I don't think that there is going to be a development of our planet with this keyword, sustainability. There won't be. I mean, we as a generation that believes that we have to leave something for our children, for the people that's just starting to know what this world is. We know that sustainability is a key word for that. And as much as I'm here on Earth, and as much as I can help on that, I'm going to do it, because I know that I was privileged to have access to water. I know that I was privileged to have access to forests and to jungles and to all of this beauty that my country especially has, because I mean, I'm super fan of Colombia and its mountains. And so I like my children to see that as well. I love my children to have access to rivers and mountains and all of this stuff as well. So as much as I'm here, I'm so committed to helping, you know, diminish the footprint that we live on Earth, specifically in those aspects.
Thanks so much, David. That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I see Mila, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Kathryn. I would like to touch upon the other part of preserving our Mother Earth, meaning the people, the people who live on Earth, and this social sustainability. Because apart from the environmental sustainability, which of course is a major thing when we talk about sustaining the planet Earth, we also need to tackle upon what's causing the troubles we are having in the environment right now. And apart from the economy is built by people. So the people should take care of this planet Earth. And how do we do that? Well, I would say we start with the individual responsibility towards what we have, towards the resources we use, and towards the things that we do and how we do them. And then that kind of grows onto this collective responsibility of one country, of one nation, of one ethnicity, of one continent, of one planet Earth. And apart from that, I think that we should be also mindful of to keep this eagerness to learn and to explore different, the diversity that exists on the planet Earth, and to be open-minded towards it, without any prejudice, without any hate speech, without any discrimination. There was a very good campaign of the Council of Europe and intragovernmental organizations here in Europe. It was called All Equal, All Different. And it gazed onto this, how we're all one human being. However, we kind of hold the diversity within us about who we are and where we come from and what we do. And there was another, like a follow-up of this campaign, another campaign that was called No Hate Speech Movement, because we addressed the importance of embracing diversity as one of the core values of on the planet Earth.
I love that. It's holding those two parts, diversity, but also unity and solidarity, both within the human race, but also thinking about how we interact with the earth. And I love the comment that you made around how we treat and how we care for our Mother Earth starts with us, right? So we have our own responsibility, and how do we then start to inspire or start a rippling effects where we inspire other people really to take care of Mother Earth. So I love all those concepts that you brought up. Unless anyone had any thoughts, I just wanted to share some gratitude for all of you for being here. Honestly, I'm so humbled with the inspiration, the work that you're doing in your communities. It has been incredibly I'm overwhelmed with everything that I've heard today. And to echo that, if you guys have been watching the chat, there's just been so much love that's been pouring out towards you guys and the work that you're doing. So keep it up. You guys are the future, and yeah, only better things ahead. So wonderful. Thanks so much. Before we close out, I did want to hand it back to Khalid for some closing words.
Thank you so much, Kathryn, for moderating and holding an engaging conversation with the alumni. I was very excited to hear everyone share their thoughts and their experiences about this topic. And just, I really appreciated the feedback that we're getting in the chat. And I think some of you had a lot of questions about the work that we do. And I encourage you to reach out to us. We'd be happy to connect you to our alumni. They're all doing some amazing work. And these 6 alumni are just a small percentage of the amazing alumni we have from all around the world who are working on various topics and all around the world. We usually have around 35 countries or more represented at each retreat. And I wanted to thank you for engaging. For those who are interested in joining us, the program is a full year-long program. We're constantly looking for mentors. We're looking for speakers, irrespective of age. You can be a young person or old person. We welcome you. We encourage you to join us and support these young leaders throughout the year. Please visit our website, and I'll put my email down to reach out to. And again, the young leaders are really the future. And each time we meet with a new cohort and the alumni return to serve as mentors, our entire team is inspired year after year by the young leaders. Each year we see more and more passion, more and more drive to make a positive change in the community and the world. And each of the individuals you see here and our entire alumni, they're dedicated, they're passionate, and they want to make a change. And we're very thankful that they're a part of our network, and I encourage you all to continue following the work that we do at MCW and working and speaking to young leaders around the world. And thank you again to NextGen and Kathryn for hosting this.
Wonderful. Thank you all. So much gratitude. Have a wonderful rest of your day or night. And take care. Take care of yourself. Take care of your communities. Take care of the earth. And thank you.
Well, I just have to echo Kathryn here. Wow. Thank you all from the bottom of our hearts for showing up. Linda, Akraf, Ifreet, David, Mila, Ahmad, what powerful wisdom. It gives me so much hope to know that we're coming in from all geo-regions of the world, having represented different cultures, different belief systems, perhaps growing up. And it's really a sign of, I think, the state of the world today, to be able to all gather on a Zoom call like this and find hope and inspiration and solutions all together. It's really what it's about. So just thank you so much. I particularly really enjoyed the idea of the domino effect, to see each of us taking self-responsibility for authoring the lives that we want to live, and extend that, be the change we want to be in the world. It is, an idiom for a reason, and it's because it's true. So thank you all deeply for the work that you're doing in the world, and looking forward to continuing this conversation inside and outside of the summit. I just wanted to share one quote that arose to me as I was listening to you all share, and that is from a woman named Julia Butterfly, who's an American environmental activist. And I encountered her work when I connected up with a group called Generation Waking Up out of the Bay Area. And we did a lot of work with Joanna Macy's the work that reconnects and the great turning. And Julia Butterfly has this to say. If you're the only person left, as long as your hope is committed in action, then hope is alive in the world. And we are so much bigger than one. Each one of us, as we've talked about today, is living our lives with great intention, and to just feel the movement really rise in response to the challenges that we're facing today is tremendously inspiring. So again, thank you very much for that. As we close, I just wanted to mention two quick things. It's a great privilege for us to gather today and have these discussions. And as we've noted at the beginning of the call, discussions are a first step, and action, as you've all demonstrated today, is really the calling of our times. How do we walk our talk? And one of the ways that we've identified as a NextGen group here today that we can begin to walk our talk is by starting with this idea that by having these conversations, we can really identify what are the essential actions that need to be taken. We're all dealing, with things in our local communities, but over the course of this week, we'll all identify different ways in which we're contributing to the movement. And so, as we mentioned yesterday, one of the projects that this NextGen team is going to take on and invite all of the participants throughout this week to contribute to is a synthesis of all of the solutions and actions that are being presented and represented by our groups over this next week. We've talked about a lot of different solutions here. We talked about some great ones yesterday, and we'll continue to talk about them through this week until Sunday. And we have an open invitation for all of the panelists here today and for all of those who are watching to help contribute to whatever this product is going to be, this vision that we've represented here and brought forth during this NextGen week for this reason. Because if we can define the vision of what needs to happen, then we can really begin to help each person figure out what their authentic contribution will be to the movement. We all have different parts to play, and each one is vitally important. So running along this theme of self-responsibility, we look forward to putting out this collective vision. Stay tuned for that, and the additional discussions of how we can each contribute our piece to this puzzle. The platform that process will take place on is the Ubiverse. We've seen an incredible interaction and connection even just on the chat here today. And we really encourage people that if you're so inspired to log on to this platform that we have and continue the conversations, continue the connections. That's one of the most powerful things we can do is come together across traditional boundaries and simply show up with presence and an open heart with good intentions and let the collective intelligence take it from there through our interaction. So we have a really cool, I just want to mention, map feature so that you can go on and see this growing community that's building over the weeks and say, hey, who's around the corner from me? Who's interested in the same things? Let's continue these conversations and see how we can support each other. So just wanted to mention that before we close as well. As a final word, I would like to pass on the torch to Raji here, who will give us a preview of what our panel will be tomorrow. And then we'll say some final words. So again, panelists, thank you deeply from the bottom of our hearts for sharing time with us today. Good luck to you. We look forward to continuing the conversation. And Raji, over to you for a preview for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, for your words. I will not attempt to best your eloquence, so I will keep it simple and just say I'm really, really inspired by all of you guys and very honored to know you now. And I hope that we can speak more and collaborate more in the future, because the work that you're doing can help the work that we and everyone else are doing. So thank you. Before we close today, I just want to give a very quick preview of tomorrow's session. Tomorrow we'll be having a panel representing a diverse group of MBA students from the National University of Singapore. And they'll tell us about the work they're doing to combat COVID in Singapore and around the region, as well as, just as you guys have done, talk about their vision for a post-COVID world. So tune in for that tomorrow. And in anticipation of that, and in absolute gratitude for the time we've spent together, I'd just invite 20 seconds of reflection before we close. So take that time as you will now. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your presence, and good night from me, and good morning, and good afternoon, and good everything, wherever you are. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Adios.
And
Bye.